Are you frustrated about your weight? Or are you overwhelmed with all the information out there and unsure where to begin? Are you confused about all the different diet options that are out there and wonder if there is one that is better than another? Well, if you are, you're not alone. This is one of the most confusing and frustrating things in medicine. In this video, however, I'm going to give you a doctor's perspective on some simple things that you can do right now to start your journey. Welcome to Family Med, your medical home for practical and accurate information to help your family make healthy decisions. If you're new here, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Eric Richardson, and my passion is helping you cut through all the health information clutter on the internet. If that sounds like the kind of information you or your family needs, make sure you follow along with us. Hit that subscribe button and share it with your friends. Well, if you're watching this video, most likely you're a little frustrated and overwhelmed with weight and where you should even begin. Or maybe even been told you have high blood pressure or cholesterol problems, and you're told that you need to change your lifestyle. You've heard from friends that the Keto Diet is the best way to go. Others swear by intermittent fastings, others the Paleo or vegan or Mediterranean, low fat, high fat, on and on and on. It's kind of frustrating because all these diets promise that theirs is the best one and then it's going to be the best, quickest way to get you back into those size 2 jeans. It's confusing, and most of the time, it just makes us want to give up and not even try. But which is best and where do you start? Well, today we're not going to go through all the different diets that explain why one is better than the other. The reason for that is that in all reality, there isn't any evidence that really one is better than another. But the interesting thing is, when you look at all these diets, there are some similarities that in the end, I think are key to the best success in starting your process to a new healthy you. There was a recent study that helped bring a lot of clarity to this debate, and that was done last year. It was called the Diet Fits Study. I think that stands for Diet Intervention Examining the Factors of Interacting with Treatment Success. Yeah, long name for a study, I know. But this was actually a pretty good study. They wanted to examine and compare the low-fat versus the low-carb diets. This tends to be the camps a lot of these diets seem to fit into. What they did is they had 600 people enrolled in the study. Half did low fat and half did low carb. They were asked to eat lots of vegetables, avoid processed foods, get good exercise. In the case of the low fat, they were to keep their intake to less than 20 grams a day of fats, and the low carb, less than 20 carbs a day, and participate in daily exercise. They watched them for a year, and they both ended up losing about the same amount of weight, which was an average of 12 pounds. The conclusions from the study pointed out that the outcomes were the same, and it was felt that it was more due to the similarities of the different plans than the differences. Now, certainly each camp had their critiques of the study. The low-carb diets didn't feel like it went far and long enough, and the fats the same. And again, I'm not going to advocate for any specific diet. My point in sharing this is, again, all these different diets have some degree of similarity that I think is key to success when it comes to healthy diet. So it's these similarities that we're going to go through today. These recommendations are more designed for that person who really just doesn't know where to start. It's not going to be an all-inclusive list, and is meant for more of the low-hanging fruit, if you will, of things that you can easily recognize and change. So to better understand my recommendations, let's go through a brief explanation of one of the biggest culprits in weight gain. This is the way that the hormone insulin interacts with the body. Insulin is a hormone produced by your pancreas that has a principal role of helping the body use sugars or glucose. It's the vehicle that the body uses to help to bring sugar from the blood vessels into the cells in order to be used. The problem is that insulin is also the vehicle that the body uses to store sugar into fat. If it isn't something that you're burning, then you're going to store it. So keep that in mind as we talk about the things that are most important to avoid. The more we eat those things that are going to spike our sugars quickly, the higher our insulin is going to be, and the more we're going to store fat. So how are we going to approach this? Well, the first thing I'm going to recommend is getting rid of liquid calories. This is your pop or soda, depending on what part of the country you live in. Your juices, your Starbucks double frappuccino, or latte, or any other kind of sweetened beverage. Just get them out of your diet. These drinks are nothing but sugar, and since they're in a liquid form, they're even easier to digest, which causes a much more rapid spike in your blood sugar. Remember, we store what we're not burning. Your average can of soda, for example, has 180 calories. That's at least 20 to 30 minutes on the treadmill just to burn off that one can. Now, is that really worth it? The second is along those same lines. These are going to be your sugar-based products. These are going to be your cakes, your cookies, your candies, donuts, or anything else that has sugar. This is going to be your cane sugar, your regular sugar, your brown sugar, corn syrup, and any other kind of added sugar. Again, the same reason is that we avoid these liquid calories apply. Sugar doesn't take much to be absorbed and causes a very quick rise in blood sugar. So, unless you're a marathon runner, it's going to take a lot for you to be able to accommodate for this. And most people just can't get away with it. So that's what I consider the first tier. Okay, those are the first things you need to eliminate from your diet. Many find that just by cutting those things out, they start to make significant headway in their goals. But that's typically not going to be enough. Now that brings us to the next recommendation, and that's the elimination of refined carbohydrate. What's a refined carbohydrate, you may ask? Well, this is going to be any grain where they have processed and stripped away most of the fiber and nutrients from the grain. For example, flour. When wheat is processed to make white flour, they strip away the bran and germ of the seed. This contains most of your fiber and nutrients from the wheat. It does make a lighter end product, but what it also does is it makes it a lot easier for the body to digest it, and it's absorbed much faster and converted to sugar in the blood. So, when you eat refined carbohydrates, or foods made out of white flour or white rice, for example, your body treats it very similar to as if you had eaten something made of sugar. In contrast, when you eat foods which are more of a complex carbohydrate, those are whole grain foods like whole wheat, whole oats, brown rice, quinoa, or others. It takes a lot longer for the body to digest those foods, and they don't spike your blood sugars as much. And as we described before, if we avoid the spike in blood sugar, we don't get as much insulin produced, which in turn leads to less fat storage. Make sense? So in this step, you need to make sure that you're avoiding all the breads and pastas made of white flour and foods with a lot of white rice. Change those to a whole grain product, and you're going to do a lot better. Okay, so the next tier of foods that you want to be avoiding are those that contain trans fats. These are the trans fatty acids, or a certain kind of oil or fat that really doesn't occur naturally. These tend to be manufactured fat made from vegetables. They add a bunch of hydrogen to it to help it be more stable, which allows foods to have a longer shelf life. Well, the reason this is important is trans fats do a real number on your cholesterol. They increase your bad cholesterol and decrease your good cholesterol, putting you at greater risk for heart disease and stroke. So where do we find these? Well, these are in a lot of your commercially baked goods like cookies, cakes, and crackers. Also, a lot of your potato and corn tortilla chips and microwave popcorn. A lot of your fried foods are fried in oils that have high trans fats because the oil is a lot more stable and doesn't have to be changed as frequently. For refrigerated pizza dough, like your biscuits or pizza dough, often will have it as well. And then finally, your margarines and non-dairy creamers often will have them. So you can see there's a lot of areas that they can be found. So how do you know if they're in there? Well, make sure you look at the labels. You're looking for foods that have hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils. If they have that, then avoid it. Now, one trick that the manufacturers use, that if it contains less than 0.5 grams of trans fats, they can list it as 0 trans fats on the label. You need to be careful, even though it lists 0 on the label, if there are small amounts in it, and you're eating several things with it still in there, because that can add up. So make sure you also look at the ingredients to keep your intake to a minimum. So, up to this point I've been kind of a downer to you, and I apologize. I've just been taking everything good away from you. So now you're probably asking, well, what's available to eat? If you just look at what's prominently displayed at the grocery store, then you'll probably be at a loss. This is some footage that I took in my local Walmart of what they're enticing you to buy. As you can see, none of this is food. It's manufactured, edible crack cocaine, in my opinion. All edible creations that are designed to stimulate those pleasure centers in your brain and leave you wanting more. This is the kind of stuff we need to get away from. Instead, we need to head over to the edge of the store and focus our efforts on good food. So the next tip I'm going to recommend is focus on real food. When we're talking about real food, we're talking about food that isn't packaged, processed, and preserved as much as possible. A good rule of thumb is to focus your efforts on finding food on the outside of the grocery store and less in the middle. Now this is where your fresh fruits and vegetables and proteins are usually found. You want the majority of your major meals to be made up of vegetables with some lean, healthy cooked sources of protein, including meats, beans, and fish. It's not that you can't find good foods in the middle of the store, but it's a good rule of thumb that if you're looking at the labels and there are 20 different ingredients, most of which you can't pronounce, then it may not be the best for you. Once you get a hang of this, it's really not hard, and there really are some great options. If you're not used to eating this way, it can become kind of intimidating at first, even knowing where to start. But there are a lot of great resources out there on healthy eating. Find a few websites that you like and start introducing slowly some of those recipes into your routine. Some you like and others you won't, and that's okay. Keep the good ones and find new ones to replace the bad. If you start introducing 1 to 2 new recipes a week, then over time you can build up a fair amount of different foods that you and your family enjoy eating and that your body will enjoy too. Now my last tip that I'm going to share today is that you need to get moving. Getting some sort of exercise is extremely important in this process. However, you'll notice that I've waited last to talk about this one. That's because exercise is important and key to your success. However, if you aren't changing what you're eating and just focus on exercise, you're not going to get anywhere. No matter how fast you run, you can't outrun your mouth. Most studies have shown, though, that if we do at least 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week of some moderate intensity exercise, we can make a positive impact on our health and weight loss. Now, for some, this may not be enough, but in general, if we can get up and moving every day. Start out with a simple brisk walk if that's all you can do. And as long as you're keeping your heart rate up in a sustained way for 30 minutes, you should do fine. As you get used to it, then certainly change the things up that you're doing. So there you have it. So let's review it. Remember, you need to get away from those empty calories such as sugary drinks, snacks, or candies with added sugar. You need to avoid those refined carbohydrates and focus your efforts on healthy, real food. So, hopefully you found these tips to be simple, easy to understand steps that you can take to start your weight loss journey. Hopefully you can use some of these guidelines to judge whether your diet plan that you want to embark on is healthy and as well as sustainable. There really isn't one diet plan that is proven better than another. But if you can take these simple steps, which are the common recommendations of most major diet plans, then you're gonna do well. Remember, whatever you choose to do, make sure it's something that you can stick with long term. If you don't enjoy doing it, and it becomes a chore, then you won't stick around with it, and you'll continue in the same frustrating cycle that you may be in right now. So tell us, what's been your experience with dieting? Have you had any successes with similar recommendations in this? Or is there something you have found to be helpful? If so, please let us know in the comments below. And I really hope that you found this video to be helpful. If so, please take time to like, even subscribe, and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on any of our other content that we're putting out. It really is key to helping me to be able to continue to produce these kind of videos for you. So until next time though, remember, this is Family Med with Dr. Richardson. And remember these simple steps for weight loss and better health so you can take care of your body, because it is the only one you have.